I was sort of like a hot guy. I was hot as a pistol. I think I was hotter than I am now when I became president, okay? I don't know. I said to somebody, was I hotter before or hotter now? I don't know. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? Who the hell cares, right?
If you thought that clip was weird, just wait until you see what Trump has to say about his pants. And that was from Trump's rally in the Bronx last night. For context, Trump was rambling about his days working in real estate. He also brought up a truly bizarre anecdote about his pants. Watch.
Some of the greatest days of my business career were in the toughest times, but I enjoyed waking up every single morning and go to battle. A lot of people say to me today, the toughest business people that you know about, could I ask you a question? How do you do it? I say, do what? How do you get up in the morning and put your pants on? Why do you put the pants on? I'll explain it to you someday. How do you do it? How do you get up? How do you do it? How can you want to do with what you do? They're after you. They're after you. These horrible human beings are after you all the time. Impeachment hoax number one, impeachment hoax number two.
How does he do it? How does Trump put his pants on? Well, thankfully, he did give us an answer. Watch.
And I say, you know what I do? I just do it. I put on the blinders. I say, I just do it. We do it.
That's helpful. Cenk, have you learned anything about pants application?
Look, man, we've said this many times, but if this brother was just an insult comic, I'd buy a ticket, right? I mean, this guy's hilarious. People ask me, why are you so hot? Like, I would say things like that as a joke. He says it for real. Because people ask me, how do you put your pants on? Do they really ask you that? Okay, is that a compliment? He's like, look, I know I close the blinds and I just do it. Oh, you just put the pants on. Wow, I didn't know you were that good, dog. But they love it. They eat that stuff up, man. And so in a sense, it's more relatable than Biden, even though it's relatable to maybe people in mental institutions, but still people laugh, people have a good time. They're like, how did he get such a big crowd in the Bronx? So that's got a complicated answer, but one of the answers is because they want to hear a comedy show about a guy going, how do I put my pants on? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm amazing at putting on my pants. Close the blinds and put them on, amazing. So, I mean, this is what we got to deal with.
I do want to interject or correct and say he didn't say he closes the blinds. He said he puts on blinders, which I think suggests that he has to focus to put his pants on. But listen, I don't think this is a ridiculous question. Like, I can relate to this. I'm a hot guy who has trouble putting his pants on sometimes, right? Hot guys with pants issues are a real demographic in this country, and he's trying to appeal to them. I totally get it. But like, also seriously, like, you're bringing up like such a good point, which is that he's doing stand-up. He's doing stand-up to an adoring crowd. And I think there's something that's always consistently missed when Trump rallies and things like this are covered, that where it's like they're pretending he's talking about policy, or that he's like talking about legitimate plans that he's drawn up about what he's going to do, and that's the basis of the criticism against him. Or he says something that's like unhinged, and that's the basis of like, oh well, he's also senile, just like they say Biden is. He's also senile, and all of it feels like it's missing the point. He's, as a threat, I don't think this idea that like he says silly, ridiculous things is a legitimate part of the criticism that should be levied against him, because it ignores the policy issues that are the very real threats that, like, dismantling Roe v. Wade kind of policy issues. And so like, it's funny, like I agree. He's genuinely funny. It's a huge problem that he's genuinely funny, but he is. It's also ironically a problem for Republicans who are notoriously incredibly unfunny. And so like, I feel like when I see this, all I can really think is like, this is crazy. What are Republicans going to do without this type of, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's comedy. It's this appeal that he has that Republicans don't. I'm kind of going all over the place with this, but like this is such a good little microcosm of both what is wrong with Trump, but also what's wrong with the way that Trump is analyzed, I think, in general.
That's exactly right. I'll just double down on that real quick. I think mainstream media gets this completely wrong, and so does the Democratic Party leadership. They think stuff like that is a negative for Trump. No, what we're pointing out is whether you think it's silly or not, and we do think it's silly, we think it's a net positive for Trump. It excites people. They want to hear what he's saying. When's the last time somebody was like, shh, quiet, I'm trying to hear what Biden has to say? Like almost never, right? So the fact that he's more entertaining is at a minimum a political advantage.
To go back to Jules's point, this represents just like a lack of representation in our political system and the problem with the two-party system. I mean, you have Trump, who's clearly pro-pants. Biden has yet to say anything about pants. RFK just argues that the government shouldn't force anybody to wear pants, and that pants probably give you autism. I'm just curious. I mean, where does Trump's VP pick stand on pants? I need to know more before I make a decision going into November.
But Jordan, if the Democratic candidate made a joke like you just did or Jules did, they'd be so much more likable, right? If they were talking about pants, they would be more likable. Instead, you'll get like MSNBC hosts going, tut, tut, tut. Can you believe he's talking about pants, right? And how he puts his pants on. Look, guys, that's part of why it's funny. Like, we have to explain these things to these people because and that goes to the even bigger problem for Democrats, which is that they don't know any real people. The party has become so stuck in amber, in the gold that they created. They've become like King Midas. Like they've everything they touch is flushes with money from the corruption. But since they're so rich, they've lost touch with real Americans, whether it's mainstream media or establishment Democrats. So that's why they don't get this, and they think like, I do declare, no one at the club makes jokes about pants or pantaloons of any sort. Like, yeah, guys, that's why you're losing.
That's Cenk. That is like such a strong point that I feel like is so consistently missed. Where, yeah, Democrats are really, really terrible at weeding out people who seem alien within the party. And ironically, Republicans are, I think, better at that than any other political strategy. Like I always think back to like when the Tea Party ousted essentially all of the like older establishment Republicans. And that was clearly the strongest move that they have made in the last like 20 years, where now they have this very young crop of fire-breathing lunatics that their base loves. And meanwhile, Democrats are saddled with like the oldest possible people that they could find who refuse to leave office, who can't be forced out of office under any circumstance. And I mean, I know this is like over like a jokey thing, but like, yeah, like Biden should make jokes about pants that are funny and coherent, because even if Trump's aren't coherent, it's still funny, and it sort of illustrates this like outrageous divide where like truly, yeah, Democrats don't know, or like the Democratic establishment doesn't know any real people. They've been stuck in this, I don't know, political mud. Like, not to like invoke the swamp, but it's a different kind of swamp. But it is like swampy energy of like, yeah, these people have been here forever. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't relate to the average person. And meanwhile, Republicans are relating to their average person like as directly as possible and cheering it on. Well, exactly like you're saying, Democrats are saying, oh, well, look at that. Can you believe he said that? It's like, yeah, dude, that's why he's doing so well in spite of how terrible he is in every other respect. It's just crazy to me that this isn't such a like upfront, immediate part of the conversation every time we talk about the political environment. It's
I just do
funnier, at least.
That's Trump coming in with, I just do it.
I just do it.
Yeah, I think this is the Feinsteinification of the Democratic Party. And it is a massive problem. And they don't even realize it's a problem. Okay, so that's a good transition actually to what I promised you guys in the first hour. So for Jules and Jordan, we were talking about the potential VP picks. And so Tom Cotton and Nikki Haley came up, and I explained why I think that they are still in the ballgame, and I think that Cotton actually now might have pole position, because it's the donors who want an establishment VP. And so Trump is thinking, well, if they're gonna give me money and the VP doesn't really matter too much, Sure, I'll pick one of your scrubs. So who do you have? And among the scrubs that he has, among the establishment guys, yeah, there's Elise Stefanik, there's Nikki Haley, there's Tom Cotton, and Tom Cotton is both militaristic in a way that Trump likes and is fascist in a way that Trump likes, but is also a giant neocon and pro-establishment. So he checks off a bunch of boxes. So, but then I said something at the end, and I said, let me just kick it over to the bonus episode for the members, where I said it might not be so bad for those guys to be the VP pick. Why? Even though Tom Cotton is maybe the worst of all the options from a policy perspective for us. Look, guys, I don't know what's going to happen to Trump or Biden in their next term. But whoever is in office is likely to screw things up and is likely to become significantly unpopular. But there's a third thing, which is that both these guys are super old. Okay, if like Trump were to pass away, and he's like, and last time there's two different parts of the establishment, right? One is the guys who provided the brakes in Trump's car last time. And that's why his whole thing didn't explode. Like he had a bunch of really stupid ideas that would have broke the country, but the establishment Republicans were like, no, we're not trying to break the country. We're just trying to rob the country. Don't do that, okay? And so that having that check is not such a bad thing. So that's point one. Point two is the establishment is super unpopular, right? So if Tom Cotton were to be the nominee next time around in 2028, especially after very likely Trump and Cotton screwed up the country, then the rage of A, young people, and B, who want people who want change, which is now about at least 45% of the country who are like, I really want change, right? If all of that ire was directed at the Tom Cottons of the world, that would be a pretty terrific thing in 2028. Now, that's assuming they don't end democracy, which is a giant assumption. And I don't want any of that to happen because I don't want us to go down a dark path for 4 years, right? But I'm saying if you had to, as a progressive, you had to pick a VP pick, Tom Cotton would be the last guy you would pick on policy, but he might be the first guy you pick strategically on the politics of it for 2028. So is just a quick conversation about this. That's my thought on it. Jules and Jordan, am I crazy or does that make some degree of sense?
I think it makes sense to some degree, but I also think it's sort of, for me, it falls into this trap of what do voters care about and how do voters direct their anger or support. And I think it's like what we're seeing with Biden now, which is that, yeah, it was sort of like with Trump, like if he picks a VP that proves to be unpopular, if there's the succession and Trump is gone, but I don't know that Republicans are necessarily turned off by an unpopular candidate, especially in the same way that Democrats are. I mean, the way I think about 2024 is that I would be surprised to learn that Trump had picked up any votes since 2020, but I would not be surprised to learn that Biden had lost an enormous number of votes going into the election. And we know, like statistically, we know that elections generally come down, at least in the last like 30, 40 years, elections come down to how many Democrats vote, because traditionally Republicans vote within the same like rough number of people or at the same ratio to registered Republican voters. So elections are won and lost by how many Democrats show up. And so the idea of like bringing in a really, really unpopular VP for the nation, I don't think moves the needle as much as you would expect, because I do think Republicans will just vote for a horrible Republican candidate who has no redeeming qualities because they're not a Democrat, whereas Democrats will genuinely like pick and choose who they want to vote for. So it's part of the logic of like, well, we'll choose someone, I hope they choose someone terrible so that we look better. It does also kind of have that the feel of what Hillary Clinton was doing, which is like, well, initially let's boost this lunatic and it'll be easy peasy to get through the election. And it turned out like, nope, blew that strategy completely. So I agree with the overall idea, but I also hesitate to say that it would make like as big of an electoral impact as we would hope.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think it would make any impact in 24. I'm hoping that it would make an impact in 28, and it's a house of horrors, right? It's not like he's going to pick anyone we like. So I'm just hoping that he picks the one that is most likely to lose in 28. Jordan, quick thought on it?
I don't know if Cotton would add anything, but I think not picking Haley would be a risk, just because you're going to have people who supported her because they don't like Trump potentially sit out. So she's trying to shore up support and galvanize support behind him. They're trying to unify the base going into the general, saying she'll vote for him, despite, as we've seen for the past week, everyone dig up all of her old comments about how he's unstable and he's terrible and a threat. They're trying to rectify that situation. The only benefit in a VP pick, I think, would be for her to help address that problem, but also the juxtaposition in the VP debate. Not that it makes a huge deal. Cotton is stiff, he's awkward, and as goofy as Harris is, she is more personable than Tom Cotton. I mean, that guy is a robot, like a war-loving robot. She's weird. She thinks she just fell out of a coconut tree, but she's more appealing to most people in this country compared to him, who is just a blank slate.
That is amazing that Trump is considering someone that is clearly less likable than Kamala Harris. Man, I mean, this is supposed to be a democracy, and we just keep picking the most unpopular people to run for office.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.